What's up, Alabama fans? It's Andrew Bone here with BamaInsider.com. It's a big week. It's the first week of Alabama football camps and official visitors. So, a lot of top recruits heading to Tuscaloosa this weekend and will for the next several weeks as Alabama hosts several top recruits throughout the month of June. And then we'll cap it off with a camp the final weekend of July. So, let's get down to it. Let's talk about some of these top recruits that are going to be heading into Tuscaloosa this weekend. We're also going to talk about some of the top recruits throughout the country who have named favorites over the course of the last few days. I hope you all had a great Memorial Day weekend. I spent a little bit of time at the lake, so got a little bit rejuvenated, got relaxed, and now back to focus completely on the recruiting front. So let's get into it, guys and girls. Let's talk about the official visitors this weekend. Big group of officials for the first weekend of the month. Got Brandon INNISS, five-star wide receiver, number one wide receiver in the country out of American Heritage High School down in Plantation, Florida. Kind of surprising. This is going to be his first trip to Alabama. And we've talked about Brandon INNISS for a long time. Started talking about him last summer as a top target for the Crimson Tide. Even though he committed to Oklahoma, Alabama continued to recruit him, continued to show a lot of interest. Now, he has high interest still in Oklahoma. He has high interest in USC, in Miami. There's a lot of schools that are coming after him, but he's kind of focused in on some top schools here, including Alabama. Ohio State's considered one of the top contenders for Brandon Ennis as well. But this is a big weekend for him because he's going to get a chance to finally see the campus, spend time with the coaching staff, be around the players. He's going to get a chance to really get the ins and outs of the Alabama football program. Also get a chance to spend a little bit of time with Earl Little Jr., who is now a freshman at Alabama, his former teammate. So I'm sure he's going to be showing him around a little bit this weekend, trying to recruit him to Tuscaloosa. So Brandon Ennis, probably the biggest name that's going to be in Tuscaloosa this weekend on an official visit. Another wide receiver that's going to be in town is Cole Adams out of Wauwassa, Oklahoma. Cole actually visited Alabama earlier this spring, so this is going to be his second trip to Tuscaloosa. There's definitely a lot of interest there. Alabama wide receivers coach Holman Wiggins went out to see Cole Adams during that first week of the spring evaluation period. Spent a lot of time in the state of Oklahoma, but one of the main targets he went to see was Cole Adams. So we'll see how things go with Cole this weekend, and certainly can see him potentially as a part of Alabama's recruiting class. There are going to be two tight ends in Tuscaloosa on official visits this weekend. One who has been to Alabama before, one who hasn't. Luke Haas out of Bixby, Oklahoma, Rivals 100 tight end, currently committed to Arkansas, but has expressed a lot of interest in the Crimson Tide throughout the last year, visited Alabama last summer, and definitely has high interest in the Crimson Tide. Riley Williams out of Portland, Oregon, making the cross-country trip. Now, we've been talking about some of these Pacific Northwest guys, how Alabama just hasn't cracked into that area just yet. We'll talk about Jayden Wayne here in a minute, one of Alabama's top targets from the state of Washington. But Riley Williams making a trip from Portland, Oregon to Tuscaloosa. This is a guy that Alabama definitely has a lot of interest in. He's 6'7", about 225 pounds. Definitely a guy that they feel like can be a difference maker in their offense. And then finally, Dylan Lonergan, four-star quarterback out of Brookwood High School in Snellville, Georgia, expected to visit Alabama this weekend. Now, Dylan's visited Tuscaloosa several times before, including last summer when he earned his offer from the Crimson Tide. But as of right now, with Eli Holstein being committed, it just kind of feels like he's going to end up going somewhere else. South Carolina has been a top contender for him for a long time. I could easily see him going there. He visited the Gamecocks several times, but we'll see how things go this weekend. See if Alabama continues to remain a contender for Dylan despite Eli Holstein's commitment to the Crimson Tide. Now, there are going to be some official visitors on campus, but there's also going to be some unofficial visitors, guys that are going to be participating in camp. But there's also going to be some guys that are just going to be there hanging out, spending time with the coaching staff. And one of the main guys that's going to be on campus is Malik Bryant, the #1 outside linebacker in the country out of Jones High School down in Orlando. Now, Malik visited Alabama earlier this spring and came away with the Crimson Tide as his top school. He's going to be making that commitment on July the 23rd. Now, he's got official visits set up for other schools in contention for him this month, but is only going to take an unofficial visit to Alabama. He says he's going to take an official visit to Alabama this fall. So let's say Alabama strikes out on him next month. Still means that Alabama's going to have a chance to get him back on campus here in the fall. But maybe they get him on board in July and also get him on campus again a few times this upcoming season. Another big prospect that's going to be in town is Justin Jefferson. This is a outside linebacker, inside linebacker, can play either one, from Pearl River Community College over in Mississippi. Jefferson received an offer from Alabama a few weeks ago, and this is certainly one of Alabama's top JUCO targets. He's going to be on campus this weekend. You had Job, edge rusher out of Oklahoma. It's going to be on campus working out at Alabama's camp. So those are the guys that are going to be in Tuscaloosa this weekend for camp, for official visitors, 4 official visits, and also just on campus as unofficial visitors. Now, we're going to see a couple guys that are going to be on campus earlier this week. Starting on Wednesday, Payton Kirkland, 4-star offensive lineman out of Orlando, going to be on campus for an unofficial visit, but also plans on working out at the Tides camp. Now, he has official visits currently set later this month to Oklahoma. That Oklahoma visit actually this weekend. Then he's going to visit Florida, Michigan State, and Miami. He has a commitment date scheduled in July. We'll see if that commitment date holds up, and we'll see how the visit for him goes this weekend. Another intriguing prospect that's going to be visiting Alabama, camping at Alabama on Wednesday is KYLAN Fox. He's a 6'5", 220-pound athlete who has 20-plus offers from around the country, from Grayson High School over in Loganville, Georgia. Would not be surprised if we see him as the first one from Alabama summer camps to receive an offer from the Crimson Tide this week. So keep an eye on KYLAN Fox, 2024, tight end, defensive end. He can play it all. Athlete from Georgia. So that's kind of a look at some of the top guys that we're going to see this weekend in Tuscaloosa visiting. I'm not going to go through, next week, the following week, the week after that. We're just going to go week by week. So next week we'll talk about the guys that are going to be coming in throughout the week, next week, and the weekend, and so on and so on. So that's kind of a look at this weekend. Now I'm going to go over some of the top recruiting news that we've seen over the course of the last week that you may have missed. We had a video last Tuesday, so this is kind of bringing you all up to speed. I know plenty of y'all had some time off during that Memorial Day weekend, so you may have missed some things. So let's talk about some of the key storylines that we've seen on the recruiting front over the course of the last few days. I think one of the biggest stories that we've seen, and I don't think they tried to make it into a big story, but it kind of became a big story, was ELLIOT Washington making a post on social media tweeting about him not necessarily reopening his recruitment, but just keeping the door open. Visits, wanting to enjoy the process. Nobody was really sure if that meant that he was decommitted or if he was still committed but just taking visits. After talking to a few people close to ELLIOT, did confirm that he is still committed to Alabama. He just wants to enjoy some visits, take some time, and make sure he's making the right decision. Nothing wrong with that. Certainly something that he should do in terms of making sure he's making the right decision. And we've seen him take some visits. He should be back up in Tuscaloosa sometime in the month of June. But ELLIOT Washington still committed to Alabama and just going to take some visits this summer, enjoy it, and make sure that he's making the right decision for himself and for his future. Another big story that we saw last week was CEDRIC BAXTER, top 100 running back out of Florida, announced that Alabama has re-entered the race in his recruitment. He announced the top 5 last month of Texas A&M, Arkansas, Florida, and Miami. A little surprising when he didn't include Alabama in that top 5, because we've been talking about him on Bama Insider for several months, really since the fall when he received his offer from Alabama. Took a visit down up to Tuscaloosa. Definitely expressed a lot of interest and certainly expected Alabama to make that top group. But when they didn't make that top group, uh, you know, certainly certainly caught everyone off guard. But now they are back in the mix. He removed Arkansas from that top five, added Alabama. I had a chance to talk to Cedric last week about why Alabama is back in the race. He said they never really exited the race. They were just not in his top five. He had continued to talk to Alabama running backs coach Robert Gillespie throughout the process. He has a great relationship with him, so that he had a chance to sit down with his family, really talk about his finalists and summer visits, and just felt like it was best if they included Alabama in that top five group because of the history and the production they've had at the running back position. So let's talk about some of these guys who have also narrowed down their list of top groups. So Jayden Wayne, this is a guy that we have talked about for a long time. Jayden Wayne announced the top six a few days ago of Alabama, Oregon, Georgia, Miami, Michigan State, and LSU. That's his top six heading into the summer. Still trying to figure out if he's going to visit Alabama sometime this month or in the month of June, or if he may take a trip sometime in late July, or if he may hold off until the fall. He is going to hold off until the fall to take his official visit. He's going to take 4 official visits this summer and then take that final one in the fall, which is going to be to Alabama. Alabama has been in this race for a very long time, really since last summer when he first camped it with the Crimson Tide last June. Earned an offer from Coach Saban and has visited Alabama a couple more times since that camp. But Alabama is the lone school who has talked to him about playing tight end. Says that every school is recruiting him as an outside linebacker and edge rusher. Alabama is recruiting him as a tight end and outside linebacker. At the end of the day, they said that Alabama has told him that he can play whatever position he wants to play. And that's kind of why Georgia, I think, it has emerged as the leader in his recruitment. They're recruiting him strictly as an edge rusher. That's what he wants to play. He doesn't really want to hear much about playing tight end, but he's still very intrigued with the Crimson Tide. We had a chance to talk to Jayden last week, right before he announced his top 6 schools, and he had a Zoom call with Coach Saban, and said that he really still likes Alabama a whole lot, and wants to know a little bit more about what his future may be at Alabama as far as position goes. Now, we talked about Jayden Wayne a good bit on our site. Talked about him, on Twitter, and I keep seeing all these people post that they wish that Alabama tight ends coach Joe Cox would quit talking to him about playing tight end. If you guys think that Joe Cox is making the decision here, or any position coach is making the position here on any target Alabama is going after you, you're pretty much dead wrong. Nick Saban has the final say in this. He's going to make the decision on where he believes anybody should play, and he's going to be open and very candid to each target about this. But at the end of the day, Coach Saban is the one that makes that decision. Coach Saban has told Jayden Wayne, hey, you can play tight end, you can play outside linebacker, you can play edge rusher, but there is a little bit more opportunity potentially at tight end than there is on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll see how that all plays out over the course of the next few months. But Alabama remains strongly in the mix for Jayden Wayne and will until the end of his recruitment. Another intriguing prospect that we saw announce his finalist the other day was Aiden Mizell, Rivals 100 wide receiver, also out of the Orlando area. Now, he's going to start off his official visits this weekend with Florida. Then he's going to head up to Tennessee next weekend, followed by Georgia, and then Alabama on June 24th through the 26th. Really intrigued to see what happens at the wide receiver position this year for Alabama. After we saw the success that they had in this past recruiting class, obviously they had a lot of success the year before, but this past year, 2022 recruiting class, we saw 5 wide receivers signed by the Crimson Tide. So how many are they going to sign in this year's class? They don't have any wide receiver commitments just yet. I could easily see some happening this summer, potentially in the month of June. But definitely going to keep an eye on the wide receiver position because it is going to be a small number. We're going to see Some top guys come in throughout the month, starting this weekend with Brandon Ennis and Cole Adams. We're going to see other guys come in over the course of the next few weeks, including JUCO wide receiver target Malik Benson and many more. So it's going to be intriguing to see how it all unfolds at the wide receiver position for Alabama. That's kind of a rundown of getting all of you guys up to speed on what's been happening on the recruiting front over the course of the last few days. Letting you know who's all coming in this weekend. Now, if you're wanting interviews, if you're wanting camp scoop, if you're wanting all the nuggets, everything, go to BamaInsider.com. Now we'll provide an update, any big news, once, twice a week on our Bama Insider YouTube channel. But if you want the daily content, the daily interviews, all the stuff from Alabama's football camps. Now they have several football camps going on this month. It starts on Wednesday. You have June 1st, June 4th, June 8th. June 11th is when Alabama will host its kicking camp. June 13th, June 15th, June 18th, they're going to have an O-line, D-line camp. June 22nd, June 25th. It is going to be a busy, busy month for Alabama in Tuscaloosa, the Nick Saban football camps, but you're also going to have so many official visitors throughout the entire month. Potentially some commitments. I would not be surprised if we saw several commitments throughout the month, especially as these guys continue to take visits and take all their visits in the month of June. Probably see more commitments in July, maybe early August leading up to the football season, but definitely going to be very exciting and definitely a lot of content that's going to be coming out over the course of the next several weeks. So be sure to stay tuned to BamaInsider.com for the very latest news and recruiting scoop, and we'll be sure to update you guys on our Bama Insider channel. Thank you very much.